Malaysia.
Right.
Today I'm sharing with you the highlights of the 2026 World Miniature Hobby Show and MALCOM26, held in Penang, Malaysia over the 13th and 14th of June. Now that's only a couple of weeks ago for me as I record. This is a slideshow of the models that were on the table. It's a bit of a history lesson as well as a look into my experience from this trip, but it's mainly about the MALCOM show. Now first up, I did my best to include as many models as I could, but given my tight timelines, camera issues, as well as an incredibly crowded display table, that made it a little tricky. But I'll make you a deal: if you were one to miss out, find me at the next show and I'll guarantee to give you top billing on the next one. The video is timestamped and categorized as best I could, so if I have the wrong model in the wrong category, well, too bad. And if the sound of my narration is not to your taste, well, again, too bad. Turn the volume down and enjoy the show.
How rude.
Before coming here to Penang, I'll admit I was slightly confused. Was this show the World Miniature Hobby Show, or was it MALCOM? Turns out it's actually both. The World Miniature Hobby Show is the celebration of the hobby itself, the manufacturers, the demonstrations, the displays, and the community. MALCOM, or Malaysia Competition, is where the builders put their work on the tables to be judged, kind of like an event within the event. Around 6 months prior to the show, I'd been asked if I would like to be one of the judges for the Armour category, which of course I embraced and felt quite honoured to have been asked. I clearly must have come across far too keen, because I later got hit up to do a weathering demo up on the stage, but more on that later. So here we are, June of 2026, flying to Penang from Sydney with my greatest supporter and the love of my life, Karen. You may remember me dragging her around Shizuoka last year. She had so much fun there that she couldn't wait for this one. Now I'm almost certain those words were not meant to be taken literally, but how was I supposed to know? What made matters worse was this spatially unaware person in the seat next to her, who claimed that armrest the moment she sat down, as well as half her airspace without consultation. Added to that was the newborn she was nursing, was having some trouble keeping milk down. Note to self: pack a change of clothes in the carry-on luggage next time. It wasn't an ideal start to the story, but a story to tell nonetheless. Penang is around an 8-hour plane flight from where I live in Sydney, but the two cities are worlds apart. The first thing that hits you when you're walking out of the airport is the heat. It's hot, but it's the humidity that's the killer. Remember to pack yourself 2 cans of deodorant for the trip. Before arriving in Malaysia, I honestly didn't know a lot about Penang. I knew I was travelling there for a model show, but what I discovered was a place with an incredible history and story. Sitting on one of the world's great historic trade routes, Penang became a meeting point of cultures, with influences from Malay, Chinese, Indian, European and other cultures all leaving their mark. Traders, explorers and immigrants brought their traditions, their architecture, religions and of course their food, creating a place that feels completely unique. At the heart of Penang is Georgetown. Now, Georgetown is a UNESCO World Heritage Site where centuries-old buildings sit alongside incredible street art, markets and modern life, and around every corner there seems to be another story. Whether it be a temple, colonial building, a family business that has been there for generations, or a tiny food stall creating something amazing, as I said, quite different from Sydney. We arrived 2 days prior due to the dinner the organisers arranged for the judges and special guests. The dinner was a big deal with modelers and partners from all around the world, as well as government officials and organisers and other special guests present. Modelers reconnected, took photos and introduced themselves to new people. They drank and sang and celebrated, and the show was still one day away. I realised at this point just what this show meant to not only the modelers who were attending it, but more than that, the local government and the country itself. An impassioned speech to open the dinner by one of the government officials reflected on the growth of the show, as well as the greater vision for it. He spoke of the desire to grow the show to be the biggest in Southeast Asia, and then Asia, and eventually the world. Talk about ambition, you gotta love it. It became very apparent that this show is a matter of pride and an opportunity to not only celebrate this hobby, but to showcase the whole country. And all this was topped off with a succulent Chinese meal. And to my fellow Australians, I couldn't help but drop that reference in. And to the overseas friends of this channel, do yourself a favour and type in succulent Chinese meal into YouTube and you can thank me later.
A succulent Chinese meal.
The roots of this show began with a bunch of passionate Malaysian modelers sharing their love of the hobby, and in 2016 the first Malaysian International Miniature Hobby Show was held at the Citadel Hotel in Georgetown, Penang. The show's popularity quickly grew, and in 2017 the MALCOM competition was introduced, giving modelers a chance to compete and showcase their work. Since then, the event has continued to expand, adding new categories and attracting builders, manufacturers and artists from literally all over the world. This year it had evolved into the World Miniature Hobby Show at the SCIFI Convention Centre, with MALCOM remaining at the heart of this event as it is an international modelling competition. My wife and I, as well as a bunch of other Aussies, stayed at the Armour Spice Hotel, which is connected to the convention centre itself. I have to say, although not modelling related, that hotel was easily one of the nicest places I've ever stayed in my life. So if you're going to make the trip, be sure to check it out. You won't be disappointed. Bump-in is on the Friday night before the show begins, and the afternoon sees the contestants registering and dropping their models off onto the competition tables. This gives them an early look at the show as well as their competition. All of this is happening while the vendors are setting up their displays and preparing for the weekend's onslaught.
So for the push-in for all the competitors, what are you thinking?
The what, sorry?
Like the drop-in with all the stuff.
The drop-ins?
Well, this is the night where they all drop their stuff off,
I
right?
think people shouldn't be in here.
Okay, fair.
The morning of the show arrived, that was the Saturday, and I headed over to the convention centre before opening time for the judges' briefing. Now, to say it was a little intimidating is a complete understatement given the pool of talented modelers that they had assembled to help with the judging. Seeing my face on the banners as well as on the big screen through the venue was completely surreal. It was a real who's who of some of Asia's best modelers, and it was here I really felt the weight of what I'd been asked to do. They took this competition seriously, and it was a really big deal to have been asked to be part of it. The chief judge ran through the criteria of what was required and what we would have to do in any given scenario, as well as how to do it, and we all introduced ourselves to the fellow judges. And not long after that was the opening ceremony, which again was being taken very seriously, with local government representatives and officials presented with gifts and various thank yous were exchanged. But back to the judging, and a score sheet of sorts was handed out, and as a team we worked around the models on the tables, giving them the once over. I should have mentioned it earlier, but the way the competition works is it is broken into categories such as armour and aircraft and Gundam and all the other categories that you have come to expect at a model show. There were 15 categories in total at this year's show. Further to that, the categories are broken down into skill levels to even the playing field. Entrants have to self-assess, as I understand it, into one of two skill sets. Either you were a standard modeler or a master modeler. This meant that you would be competing against modelers who were at a similar place in their modelling journey as you were. If a judging team felt that any given model was in the incorrect category or skill level, the chief judge was engaged and made the decision to either leave it or move it to the different skill level or category. This competition is judged under an open system, meaning it has the gold, silver, bronze set up rather than a traditional first, second and third scenario. So I shouldn't really say that the modelers are competing against each other, but rather competing with themselves. In saying that, each of the categories in each of the skill levels had a category winner, and that was the model that scored the highest on the judging score sheet. But a little more on that in a minute. The way I was taking pictures and being sidetracked with commitments through the day meant keeping the images in any type of order was quite a tricky proposition now I'm back editing this video. So please be mindful, the standard and master entries will be mixed in with each other. And again, my apologies if I've miscategorized some of these models. I was judging the armour category with 4 fellow judges. Fellow Australian and good mate Chris Lehman was judging with me and had done the judging here many times before, so it was nice to kind of be under his wing as such. I must also thank Chris as he contributed to some of the images in this video. The other judges were Dennis Seed, Byung-Soo Kim and Dong Yan. Titans in the Asian and modelling world scene, no doubt. No wonder I felt slightly out of place here. The way the judging works is each judge looks at the models independently and places a small label on the ones that require a deeper and further look. This could be regarded as the triage round, if you like, to narrow down the models that were potentially in medal contention. After the triage round, we gather as 5 judges and start assessing the work. Our points are awarded for things like construction, detailing, painting and weathering, storytelling and an overall presentation. Now, generally speaking, each model usually took between 15 to 25 minutes on average for the 5 of us to go through. It was a time-consuming but enjoyable process nonetheless. Now, the judging area is set up with a perimeter of tables to stop people moving around us while we were working, which was greatly appreciated. Although you could always tell whose model it was that you were assessing when he and his whole extended family were studying every move you made and every word you said from the perimeter of the tables. So by the end of that first day, all the judging was done, so it was time for some rest, and I'd be back for day 2 to enjoy the show. Rest, however, is somewhat of a luxury when travelling with Australians, so I did my best to keep pace, celebrate the day, and simply enjoy my time in a different country. Now, day 2 is the day that's open to the public, so there was a constant surge of people moving through these spaces. The models were really tightly packed on the table that made it tricky to 1, photograph them, and 2, get a real good look at them, which inevitably meant it was easy to lose models or simply overlook them. The The hall before you enter the actual display hall is set up to showcase the work from various model clubs, as well as it housed a few various vendors selling things like Matchbox cars and other bits and pieces. Now, some of the work from these club display tables was absolutely stunning and truly world class. There was a steady flow of traffic through this hall, so from that point of view, I was really pleased people were getting to see them. The main hall, however, was set up like a traditional trade show where vendors and manufacturers set themselves up in booths and either sold their stuff, demonstrated their stuff, or simply just showcased upcoming stuff as the showgoers snaked their way up and down the aisles. It was a really good way to do it. The aisles then opened to the competition area where all of the models there were on display. In terms of models on the table, the number I'd been given was around 1,050, and given the growth this show has seen, I would like to see the competition tables with a little more breathing space next year. They really were jam-packed. At the end of the hall was the stage that the opening ceremony was done, and it was also the stage that the demonstrations were taking place all over this weekend. I'd been asked to do a demonstration, and after seeing the talented people that had assembled doing the same again, it was a strange feeling to consider that I'd been included in this group. I was feeling incredibly humbled and incredibly nervous. I did a demo on creating mud effects, which I think went well, although I think the Aussie accent may have lost a few people, or perhaps it was just the English language. I did invite questions from the crowd, of which there were none. And then I asked the crowd if anyone understood me, of which, of course, no one answered. Luckily, the big screen behind me was live casting the display. With day 2 coming to an end, the closing and medal ceremony was, as you'd expect, quite a big deal, with the judges being generously thanked with a certificate and a small trophy. I was genuinely grateful for it, and it'll take pride of place in my display cabinet. This ceremony was a real celebration as people took the stage to accept their awards. It's a gold, silver, bronze show with a category winner in each of the categories. Each category winner would go on to compete for Best in Show, which I'll touch on in a minute. There was a real tribal feel to these awards in the fact that the modelling groups that travelled from different countries were celebrating their fellow countrymen's wins. It was kind of like a team spirit defined by the country you came from, kind of like Olympics for nerds, if you like. It's an enthusiasm and a camaraderie that I'd like to see more often at model shows around the world. Best in Show on the screen was awarded along with special awards. After about 2 hours, that ceremony was over. This show, for me, reinforced just how small this world has become and just how connected we all are through this great hobby of scale modelling. We make friends and connect with complete strangers online because we perhaps like a model that they'd made or some technique that they'd done. You may have reached out and asked for advice. But getting together with these people is like running into long lost old friends. It's never weird and it's never awkward. It's like you pick up from where you left off, but you'd never even started to have left off anywhere. There is a connection through this shared passion that is incredibly unique, and my time at this show has energized me so much. Even where there's a language barrier, there was still a communication and an understanding that took place. It was really something special. Now, the opportunity to immerse yourself into a show like this can bring you so much joy, and it's something every modeler should have a go at given the chance. We're just lucky that guys like Ming and his team have the will and the passion to host these events. So a big shout out and a big thank you to the World Miniature Hobby Show and MALCOM26 for having me. And thank you for putting on an amazing show. It was really enjoyable, and I would love to think that I'll be able to come back again. Hopefully you've enjoyed this presentation, guys. If you have, please be sure to give it a like and make sure you're subscribed. And you know the drill here, right? This is the greatest hobby in the world. Share it with your family and share it with your friends, and let's be proud of what we do. Until next time, I'll see you soon.
And I think your job is very easy.